You can't keep me here forever.
How ADX Colorado breaks even the worst criminals. They found the message at 4:47 a.m., carved into the steel frame of a bed. Cell 117. Administrative Maximum Facility, Florence, Colorado. The most secure prison in America. The message was 3 words: he's already out. Officer Marcus Brennan stood in the doorway of the empty cell, flashlight trembling in his hand. The inmate who'd been assigned here, Thomas Vela, serving life without parole for the murder of 2 federal agents, had been accounted for during the 4 a.m. head count. 6 cells down. Right where he was supposed to be. So whose bed was this? Stay with this story. What happens next almost didn't get stopped. ADX Florence wasn't like other prisons. 23 hours a day in solitary confinement. Soundproof walls. Meals delivered through slots. No human contact. No windows that showed the outside world. It was designed to hold men who couldn't be held anywhere else. Terrorists. Cartel leaders. Cop killers. Men who had nothing left to lose. Brennan radioed control. "I need eyes on cell 117's previous occupant. Now." The response came back 30 seconds later, and the dispatcher's voice cracked. "Sir, that cell's been empty for 6 days." Brennan's blood went cold. Then who carved this? Silence. The protocol at ADX was absolute. Every inmate transfer logged. Every tool accounted for. Every minute documented. The facility hadn't had a major security incident in over a decade. Because incidents didn't happen here. They couldn't. Brennan walked back to the cell, running his flashlight over every surface. The carving was fresh. Metal shavings still glinted on the floor. He crouched down, examining the marks. Whoever did this had time. And tools. 2 things that should be impossible. He keyed his radio again. "I want a full lockdown." Every cell checked. "I want to know." A sound stopped him. Faint. Rhythmic. Coming from the ventilation shaft above his head. Fifth. Not random. Deliberate. Brennan stepped back into the hallway, listening. The sound moved. Traveling through the ductwork. Cell to cell. He'd worked at ADX for 9 years. He knew the one rule that kept this place running. Inmates don't communicate. They can't. The architecture made it impossible. The cells were staggered. The ventilation systems isolated. Even shouting through walls got absorbed by concrete and steel. So what was he hearing? Brennan followed the sound down the corridor. It grew louder. More insistent. Fifth. He stopped outside cell 144. Thomas Vela's cell. The man who should have been asleep. The man who'd been silent for 3 years. Who hadn't spoken a word to staff since his arrival. Brennan hit the intercom. "Vela." "Step to the door." No response. "Vela, this is a direct order. Step to the door where I can see you." The tapping stopped. Then, from inside the cell, a voice. Low and calm. "You should have listened to Markham." Brennan's throat tightened. Markham. Lieutenant Peter Markham had filed a report 8 days ago. A concern about unusual inmate behavior in Range 4. Patterns he couldn't explain. Requests that didn't make sense. The report had been dismissed. Markham was 3 weeks from retirement. Paranoid. Burned out. He'd taken personal leave the next day. No one had seen him since. Brennan's hand moved to his sidearm. "Vela, I need you at the door. Now." A shadow shifted behind the cell's reinforced window. Then Vela's face appeared, pressed against the glass. Smiling. "You think you're in control here," Vela said. "You think these walls keep us in." Brennan's finger hovered over the lockdown alarm. "But you never asked what we've been building." The lights in the corridor flickered. Twice. Then every cell door on Range 4 clicked. Not open. Just unlocked. Brennan slammed the alarm. Red emergency lights flooded the hallway. Sirens wailed. He ran. Behind him, he heard the sound of metal sliding on metal. Doors opening. One by one. When backup arrived 90 seconds later, they found Brennan at the security checkpoint, white-faced and shaking. He pointed back toward Range 4. "Check the cells. Check all of them." The tactical team moved in, weapons raised. They cleared the range in 4 minutes. Every inmate was accounted for. Every door was locked. No sign of tampering. No evidence of entry or exit. But when they checked the security logs, everything changed. The system said nothing happened. But 6 guards would resign within the week. And Thomas Vela would request a transfer. The first words he'd spoken in 3 years reveals what they found in the walls. The transfer request sat on Warden Sarah Chen's desk for 3 days before anyone read it carefully. Thomas Vela wanted out of ADX Florence. He was willing to go anywhere. Any Supermax. Any isolation unit in the federal system. Just not Range 4. Chen had been warden for 6 years. She'd seen every manipulation. Every con. Inmates didn't request transfers from ADX. They begged to leave. They broke down. They didn't file formal paperwork with proper legal citations. She called Brennan into her office at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Tell me again what you saw." Brennan hadn't slept in 4 days. The bags under his eyes told the story. The doors unlocked. All of them. "I heard it." "The logs show nothing." "Then the logs are wrong." Chin leaned back in her chair. "Marcus, I need you to hear what you're saying. You're telling me that our digital security system, monitored by 3 redundant servers, reviewed by federal auditors quarterly, is lying." "I know what I heard." 6 other guards were on duty. None of them reported anything unusual. Brennan's jaw tightened. They weren't in Range 4. Chen pulled up the footage on her monitor. Timestamp, 4:52 a.m. Range 4 corridor. Brennan running. Alone. Every cell door closed. She turned the screen toward him. "This is what the cameras show." Brennan stared at the footage. His hands gripped the armrests. "Something happened in that range. I don't care what the cameras say." Chen closed the file. "Take a week. Paid leave. Talk to someone." "I don't need." "That's not a request." Brennan left without another word. Chen should have ended it there. But 3 hours later, maintenance reported a problem. The ventilation system in Range 4 was running hot. Overworked. Like something was blocking airflow. They sent a team to investigate. What they found made Chen call the FBI. Inside the ductwork, behind a panel that should have been welded shut, was a network. Not of metal or wire. Of paper. Hundreds of pieces. Torn from legal documents, medical forms, meal receipts. Folded into tiny squares and wedged into the ventilation shafts at precise intervals. Each piece had markings. Symbols. Dots and lines that meant nothing to the maintenance crew. But Chen recognized the pattern. Morse code. Modified. Simplified. But functional. The inmates had built a communication system. Inside the most secure prison in America. Using nothing but paper and air pressure. Every time the ventilation cycled, the papers shifted. Created vibrations. Taps that traveled through the ductwork. Cell to cell. Range to range. For how long, no one knew. Chen ordered every ventilation panel in the facility opened. The FBI brought in specialists. Linguists. Code breakers. It took them 16 hours to map the system. And another 8 to realize what it had been used for. The inmates weren't just talking. They were coordinating. Planning. The patterns showed months of communication. Encrypted messages about guard rotations. Shift changes. Blind spots in camera coverage. And names. 12 names. Officers who worked at ADX Florence. Lieutenant Peter Markham's name appeared 47 times. Chen tried calling him. No answer. She sent local police to his address. The house was empty. Mail piling up. Car in the driveway. Markham had vanished. The FBI interviewed every inmate on Range 4. Separately. Methodically. Every single one denied knowledge of the paper system. Every single one had the same story. Solitary confinement doesn't leave room for conspiracy. But Thomas Vela said something different. When the agent sat down across from him, he leaned forward and smiled. "You're asking the wrong question." "What's the right question?" the lead agent asked. "You want to know how we built it? You should be asking why we stopped." The agent's pen froze on the notepad. Stopped. The system went dead 2 weeks ago. Every cell. Every range. Radio silence. Why? Vela's smile widened. Because we got what we needed. The interview ended there. Vela refused to say another word. But that night, at 11:34 p.m., something happened that made the FBI shut down the entire investigation. A call came into the Florence Police Department. From Peter Markham's phone. He was alive. Sitting in a motel 300 miles away. He told them he'd left because he couldn't take it anymore. The pressure. The paranoia. He'd needed space. He apologized for not telling anyone. The story checked out. His credit cards showed purchases. Gas stations. Restaurants. He'd been moving. Running. But coherent. The FBI closed the case. The paper system was dismantled. New protocols implemented. Warden Chen filed the incident as a security upgrade opportunity. Marcus Brennan returned to work. But he couldn't shake one detail. When they played him the recording of Markham's call, something felt wrong. The voice was right. The cadence. The words. But in the background, barely audible, there was a sound. Rhythmic. Metallic. Brennan requested the unedited audio file. Ran it through enhancement software on his personal laptop. Isolated the background noise. And when he heard it clearly, he understood. It wasn't Markham calling. It was someone telling Markham exactly what to say. He brought the file to Chin the next morning. She listened once. Then deleted it. Marcus, let this go. You heard it? That's not. I heard a man under stress making a phone call. That's all. They got to him. Somehow they... Chin stood. If you pursue this, you'll lose your job. And I won't stop it. Brennan left the office. He didn't let it go. That night he went back to Range 4. Alone. After lights out. He stood outside cell 117. The empty one. Where the message had been carved. He ran his hand along the wall. And felt something. A seam. Hidden in the concrete. He pressed. A panel shifted. Behind it was a space. No bigger than a shoebox. Inside was a folder. Marked with Markham's handwriting. Brennan opened it. The first page was a list. Dates. Guard names. His name was on it. The second page was a schematic. Not of Range 4. Of the entire facility. With one section circled in red. The subbasement. A level Brennan didn't know existed. The final page was a note. 5 words. They're not the prisoners anymore. Brennan accessed the subbasement at 2:17 a.m. The entry point wasn't on any official map. A maintenance corridor behind the boiler room. Locked with a keypad that should have required executive clearance. Markham's note had included the code. 6 digits. It worked. The stairwell descended 3 stories. Concrete walls. No cameras. Emergency lighting that flickered with every step. At the bottom was a door. Heavy steel. Unmarked. Brennan's hand shook as he pushed it open. Inside was a control room. Monitors covered every wall. Hundreds of them. Showing every cell. Every corridor. Every corner of ADX Florence. But these weren't the standard security feeds. These were older. Archival footage. Playback systems running on loops. Brennan stepped closer to the nearest monitor. Cell 144. Thomas Vela's cell. The timestamp read 3 weeks ago. Vela was asleep. Exactly where he should be. Brennan checked the live system on his phone. Same image. Same angle. Same position. Identical. His stomach dropped. He moved to another monitor. Cell 206. Footage from 4 days ago. He pulled up the current feed. Perfect match. Every cell on Range 4 was showing recorded footage. Not live feeds. Loops. Carefully constructed. Seamlessly edited. The inmates weren't where the cameras said they were. They hadn't been for weeks. Brennan's throat went dry. He grabbed his radio. No signal in the subbasement. He turned to leave, and froze. Someone was sitting in the corner of the room. In a chair. Facing the monitors. Lieutenant Peter Markham. Marcus, Markham said quietly. You shouldn't have come down here. Brennan's hand moved to his weapon. What the hell is this? Markham didn't turn around. His eyes stayed fixed on the screens. It's the only thing keeping this place from falling apart. The feeds are fake. The inmates are exactly where they need to be. Brennan drew his sidearm. Turn around. Slowly. Markham stood. Turned. He looked older. Thinner. His uniform was wrinkled. 3 weeks of stubble covered his face. But he was calm. Too calm. You think ADX works because of concrete and steel, Markham said. You think isolation breaks them. It does. No. Markham gestured to the monitors. It makes them smarter. Brennan kept the gun level. Start making sense. 10 years ago, we had an incident. Inmate killed himself in cell 319. Swallowed a razor blade he'd hidden for 6 months. No one knew how he got it. No one knew where it came from. I remember. What you don't remember is what happened after. 3 more suicides. Same month. Different ranges. Different security levels. Brennan's finger tightened on the trigger. What's your point? They were coordinating. Even then. We just didn't know how. Markham walked to a monitor. Tapped the screen. So we started watching. Really watching. And we found it. The paper system. The ventilation codes. Communication networks we didn't think were possible. Then you shut it down. We tried. Markham's voice cracked. But every time we stopped one method, they built another. Signals with meal trays. Patterns in toilet flushes. They were always 3 steps ahead. Brennan lowered the gun slightly. So what did you do? Markham turned to face him. We gave them what they wanted. The room felt colder. We let them think they escaped. Brennan's blood went ice. The empty cells. The unlocked doors. The paper network. All of it was real. But we controlled it. That's impossible. Is it? Markham pulled up a file on the nearest computer. Security footage. Range 4. For weeks ago. Cell doors opening. One by one. Inmates stepping out. Moving through corridors. But not escaping. Gathering. In a room Brennan didn't recognize. What is this? He whispered. Sublevel 2. Below this one. We built it 8 years ago. Gave them space. Tools. Materials. Why? Because if they're planning an escape, they're not starting a riot. If they're building something, they're not hurting each other. Or us. Brennan stared at the screen. The inmates were working. Constructing something. Focused. Organized. You let them out. For 6 hours a week. Supervised. Monitored. They think they're outsmarting us. They think they're building an exit. What are they actually building? Markham closed the file. Nothing. The tunnel they're digging leads to a sealed chamber. The tools we give them won't cut through the final wall. They've been working for 3 years. They'll work for 3 more. Brennan felt sick. You're lying to them. We're keeping them alive. And controlled. The suicide rate dropped to 0. Violence is down 80%. ADX Florence has been the quietest Supermax in the country for a decade. Because you're running a prison inside a prison. Because we're giving them hope. Markham's voice was hollow. Empty. Hope is the only thing that works on men with life sentences, Marcus. Fear breaks them. Isolation destroys them. But hope? Hope keeps them compliant. Brennan holstered his weapon. Chin knows about this. Everyone above your pay grade knows. And Vela's transfer request? Markham smiled. Sad and broken. He doesn't want to leave range 4. He wants to see if we'll let him. It's a test. To see how much control he really has. Brennan backed toward the door. This is insane. This is necessary. No. This is... An alarm cut through the room. Piercing. Markham's face went white. He turned to the monitors. Every screen flashed red. Oh God. What? They stopped digging. Brennan moved beside him. What does that mean? Markham's hands flew across the keyboard. Pulling up feeds. Checking timestamps. It means they know. They figured it out. On the screen, the inmates in sublevel 2 stood motionless. Staring directly at the cameras. All of them. At the same time. Then one by one they smiled. They know the tunnel's fake, Markham whispered. Which means... The lights went out. All of them. Every monitor. Every screen. Every emergency backup. In the darkness, Brennan heard it. Coming from behind the walls. Not from the ventilation. From the concrete itself. They weren't digging an escape, Markham said in the black. They were mapping the structure. Finding weaknesses. In what? In this room. The tapping grew louder. Closer. Then a crack. A spiderweb fracture appeared in the wall. Thin. Precise. The inmates hadn't been digging out. They'd been digging down. To the subbasement. To the control room. To the people who'd been watching them for 8 years. Brennan grabbed Markham. We need to go. Now. They ran. Behind them, the wall collapsed. The official report stated that Lieutenant Peter Markham and Officer Marcus Brennan were injured in a structural collapse caused by aging infrastructure. Both men were placed on permanent medical leave. ADX Florence underwent renovations. Security protocols updated. New monitoring systems installed. Warden Chin held a press conference. Assured the public that the facility remained the most secure in the nation. Thomas Vela's transfer request was denied. He never filed another. 6 months later, Chin retired early. No explanation given. The subbasement was sealed. Filled with concrete. Removed from all official blueprints. And in Range 4, the inmates returned to their cells. 23 hours a day. No contact. No communication. But on quiet nights, guards still hear it. Rhythmic. Persistent. Not from the vents anymore. From deeper. From places the cameras can't see. Because the truth about ADX Florence is simple. You can build walls thick enough to hold anyone. You can isolate them. Monitor them. Control every second of their existence. But you can't control what they learn. What they plan. What they build in the spaces between your watching. The worst criminals aren't broken by ADX Colorado. They're made patient. And patience, in a place with no time limit, is the most dangerous weapon of all. This could happen again. If this story shook you, the next one will be worse.